In the Gospel of John, Jesus' miracles are called signs. They are signs that God is at work in Jesus in a special way. They lead people to believe that Jesus is an agent of God, one sent by God. And because he comes from God, people can believe that what he says and what he does are true. So in today's Gospel, Jesus performs his first sign at a wedding feast in Cana of Galilee. At the end of the passage, we're told the disciples began to believe in him. The sign then accomplishes its purpose. It leads people, in this case the disciples, to believe in Jesus. Later in the same Gospel, Jesus performs another sign at the same place, Cana of Galilee. A royal official comes to Jesus asking him to heal his son, who is near death. Before healing the official's son, Jesus at first responds, "Unless you people see signs and wonders, you will not believe." Unless you people see signs and wonders, you will not believe. Jesus' reply is interesting for a couple of reasons. First, it shows that people depend on signs in order to believe, as we've been saying. But second, it indicates that Jesus wants people to believe even when there are no signs. So let's look more closely at signs. What signs do is to make it easier to believe that God is at work. With a sign, you see something extraordinary, something that is hard to explain. And because it is hard to explain, you more readily see God as the cause for what happened. And so one believes that God was at work in the event. Now, to be sure, not everyone is moved to believe by signs. Some will insist there is another explanation for why the extraordinary event happened. These people observe the same event, but they look at it differently. So externally, believers and non-believers observe the same event, but internally they decide to look at the same event in different ways. Some see the hand of God at work in the event. Others do not. Catholic teaching says that there is another factor in the decision to believe. The other factor is God's help. God helps a person to believe by working within that person. This is at least the case when a person believes things essential to salvation. God helps the person to believe by speaking to the person's heart. His voice within says, "Yes, believe that this is true." It's not that God's voice is audible, you can actually hear it with your ears. Rather, this is something very subtle. It is a most subtle prompting to believe, a prompting to say, "Yes, I believe." Also, people can, to be sure, mistake another voice for God's voice. They may look at an event and think that God is telling them to believe something about it. But they are mistaken. God is not telling them to believe such and such about that event. So yes, it is possible for people to be mistaken in what they believe. Yet still, when there is genuine faith, divine faith, then God's voice speaks within. So there are the following three things when a person has genuine faith. First, an event happens. Second, God speaks within, telling the person, "Yes, this is my special doing." Third, the person believes that God is at work in the event. In short, an event happens, God speaks, the person believes. All this happens more easily when the event is extraordinary and miraculous. That is, when the event is a sign. When a wondrous sign happens, it is easier to believe that God is at work in the event. But let's now expand this to events that are not extraordinary. That is, can we believe that God is at work in the ordinary events of life? Can we believe that God is at work when nothing miraculous happens? Or what is especially difficult, can we believe that God is at work even in the misfortunes of life? We don't know how he is at work in such misfortunes, and we don't think that he directly causes them. But can we believe that he is still accomplishing his plan in the midst of misfortunes? Or when we don't feel comforts or consolations from God, can we still believe in God? When we have doubts or are confused, can we still believe that Jesus is the Holy One of God? When the teachings of our Catholic faith are hard to understand, can we still believe they are true? Recall what Jesus says, "Unless you people see signs and wonders, you will not believe." When he says this, he is complaining that our faith is so often weak. We will believe when we see signs, or when things are going well, or when things are easy to understand. But our faith so easily falters when there are no signs, when things go wrong, or when things are hard to understand. Yet even in those times, when it is not so easy to believe, God's voice is still whispering within us. His voice is still urging us to believe that He is at work, saving the world through His Son. His voice is still urging us to believe that Jesus' work is continued in the Church, in her sacraments, and through her teachings. In tough times, God's voice within still urges us to believe that He is with us to save us. Jesus wants us to believe these things, even when it is not so easy to believe them. We say God often works in mysterious, hidden ways, and that's true. When we don't see how He is working, when His ways are hidden, we can start to doubt, so that our faith falters. But trust God. He knows what He is doing. When we do trust Him and keep faith in Him, then God can accomplish great things. If we have faith, He can accomplish more through us. So let's return to today's Gospel to conclude here. In it, Mary, the mother of Jesus, is our model for faith. She tells Jesus of the problem at the wedding feast, that the wine has run out. In response, she receives no special sign. In fact, Jesus' response seems to say that He will do nothing about the problem. But still, she believes. And so she tells the waiters to do whatever Jesus tells them to do. Through her faith, Jesus in turn accomplishes something great, a sign, His first sign. And if we put our faith in God, even in hard times, then God will accomplish great things through us.